Brayden, welcome back to the Diesel Podcast. I'm excited to chat with you. I've been a big fan of Fleece Performance and what you and Chase built from, gosh, way back when. I'm not sure if you actually remember this, but I think it was Diesel Power Challenge, maybe 2011 or 2012. And you
Oh
guys
yeah.
were you guys were in it, and I briefly met you guys there, and I remember just how involved you guys were with the truck that you guys brought, and to see how you guys have grown from early on to now. We're talking. You've got a ton of machinery behind you. I've seen the building. Remember the move into it. It's really an American success story, and I thought it'd be really cool today to chat with you about what what made in the USA really means, why it matters as a manufacturer, specific in diesel, automotive, and it's going to be really cool to learn more about you, the company, Fleece Performance, how it focuses on that. But we've had a ton of new listeners that have jumped on the last year or two. A lot of people new to diesel. I know who you are. I know everyone in the industry knows who you are. But tell me a bit about you and Chase and starting Fleece Performance and how it started and then grew to where it is now.
So, we have always been into everything mechanical. I mean, it didn't matter if it had an engine. We were messing with it, taking it apart. We got a go-kart hanging in the lobby. It's pretty cool. Um, we stole the engine off my grandpa's tiller because it was a 5-horse engine, and the go-kart came with a 3-horse. I mean, we were always messing with stuff. And then as we grew up, it was okay, 4-wheelers, dirt bikes, and then we got our licenses. We had gas vehicles to start out with, and we had enough money. Diesels were the thing. And I'm dating myself, I guess, but this is early 2000s. My first pickup was an '04 Duramax LOY. Chase had a VP Dodge silver truck, and graduated into a common rail silver truck. Probably the most popular cover truck there's ever been. That silver common rail of his doing burnouts. But um, we started, in about '04, '05 with just putting, exhausts and tuners, and we were consumers. We were buying stuff. Like I tell people, we went to Shides and we were customers in '04, '05, and we took Chase's truck. We bought a chip from Hazley's, and Patty sold Chase this chip and said, "Hey, if you want some more power, bring it up to the shop, and I'll show you how to modify it to get the next level." Well, it didn't take a week, and we were already up there. And so it just snowballed super fast. And with like the Duramax, it was, well, common rail. Whenever the transition to common rail is what catapulted our business. I'm kind of a nerd. Some people know that about me, but it's like the more technical it can be, the better. So the more wires, the more controls, that was our thing. And a lot of the shops that existed didn't really adapt to that real quickly. So we got our name in like the Cheetah turbochargers. That was really born around '06. Then, on paper, '08 is when we started. So 17 years ago. But started in, pole barn in a cornfield. There's a YouTube video that shows, humble beginnings, 2,000 square foot pole barn. Then we moved to Brownsburg shortly thereafter, in about 6,000 square feet. Ended up taking over 26,000 square feet total, which that was 2017. Purchased Freedom Racing Engines at the time, which was a complementary business to what we were doing, building engines. A lot of drag racing, and this was the heyday of diesel.
Yeah.
And I talk like I'm super old, but it was the Wild West. Anything went. It was not uncommon to have 800-900 horse street trucks, and it was a lot of fun. So, the big turning point was building our facility here in Pittsburgh. We went from that 26,000 square foot building in Brownsburg to 75,000 square foot total, and we moved in 2019. Fast forward now 5 more years, and this new facility, when it's complete, will be just shy of 250,000 square feet.
Wow.
It's been just a crazy fast progression, but we reinvest in equipment, and reinvest in people, and we've got a good crew, and we're on the gas. So that's kind of the success recipe, as simple as it sounds, but a lot of people lose sight in investing in your people. And the equipment, it's one of those things that's easy to identify, but you got to have somebody to run it. And, some of the stuff behind me is being operated by a 21-year-old kid. I call him a kid. He's a man, but, he's super young. We've sent him through all of the required training, and we're going to kind of travel through the shop, but I'll show you the two most expensive machines in the shop are his babies. So,
hey, Diesel fans, wanted to let you guys know that our friends over at Kershaw Knives have a 40% off MSRP code for you. If you go to kershaw.kaiusa.com, use code TDP2540, you get your 40% off MSRP. It's a great way to save some money, get some cool gear if you're in the market for a new EDC knife, something for hunting, fishing, around the job site, around the house. They've got you covered with a bunch of different choices for blade steel, opening mechanisms, handle designs, and their whole lineup is designed to meet any budget that you might have. So we really appreciate them offering that discount code just for Diesel podcast listeners. So if you're in the market, head on over to kershaw.kaiusa.com, use code TDP2540, and get 40% off MSRP. It's so important because what we're hearing about, so far this year is made in the USA. And I know that's always been really strong in diesel, right? But
yeah,
Fleece Performance is one of the companies I think about that this was always the focus. I remember talking to you guys in 2019 and before. Then the focus was on building it there, sourcing material, making stuff there in Indiana.
Yeah.
And it was your focus before it was popular. So that's why I'm really looking forward to, seeing the machines, having you tell us about parts, different things like that as it pertains to it. But, there's a segment of the industry that's going to try to play catch up, and you're not going to catch up to 17 years of hard work you've put in.
Well, it's, you view it somewhat as vertical integration. It's like vertical integration means I can make every portion of the supply chain, or I control every portion of the supply chain all the way to the finished product. And we're a very vertical company. COVID taught everybody a lot of things that, oh, well, I buy this from XYZ distributor. They're an American company, but you don't know where they're sourcing it from. And parts started to dry up quickly. And like we were back ordered on some parts that we were buying through a fastener, like a bolt hardware company. It was a 3/4 pipe plug that we do a thread mill conversion to get rid of freeze plugs on the cylinder heads. You would think that pipe plug, they're easy. It's 3/4 pipe. They were being purchased overseas. They dried up, and it's like, well, we have one 10X Swiss machine, and we use X amount of these a year. And there's another part we want to bring on. So we made that. It's a significant investment, but the pipe plugs drove that investment during COVID. Yeah. And so we try to look at it as, okay, what part cash flows that machine, and then what gravy is left over on your excess spindle time. And we've got some, several machines that are dedicated just to one product line because they're growing that quickly. But the Made in America thing, we're buying, and it wasn't always this way. But we buy aluminum directly from the foundry in Lafayette, Indiana, which is, you got to get to that point where you're committing to tens of tons of aluminum. But, we're at that point, and I can walk you around, show you some of the bar stock, and there'll be 30,000 pounds of aluminum laying there, and it might be just 2 months worth. So, but it genuinely starts from a foundry here in Indiana and ends up, hits a couple local businesses for the anodize. We have our own lasers in-house, and not just machine parts, like our wiring harnesses. The wiring harnesses, used to do all that by hand. A couple of guys have got Popeye forearms from hand crimping harnesses. And a couple of years ago, we bought a fully automated cut, strip, and terminate machine to make all of the lift pump harnesses. And the thing is amazingly fast. I mean, and it's afforded us to open up that new product line of all the pigtails. The pigtails, common problem. I mean, you'll see some of that stuff in the auto parts stores, but it was never really tailored to the diesels. And we've gone through and identified, and sometimes with the help of our dealer network, hey, I wish you would make this. We've identified all these various part numbers that are common problems that we can use our equipment in-house to produce.
So exciting about it. I like to kind of nerd out too on how things are made. Not that I could do it. I'm not a machinist. I'm not anything like that, but I like to see how it comes together. And I think, on a national level, this is what they want American business to be. They want it to be like Fleece Performance in any industry that it's in. So I want to see the machines. I want to see what you want to show me, ask you some questions about product, because
Yeah.
it helps to see, like when John and Jeff have talked with me about 6.7 Power Stroke parts or the lift pump parts or different wiring things that are out there. We see them. We know they fix our trucks. We know they keep them running. But I want to see how it's made, because
Yeah.
it's like, I know when I buy it, I'm buying it from a quality company and it's made in the USA.
Well, you can see behind me, this is one of the newer machines. This is an I-350 Mazak Integrex. It's a mill turn machine. So it is a combination of a dual spindle lathe and a milling machine in one enclosure. It's a 5-axis machine. So technically, I've seen this machine make crankshafts. I've seen it port cylinder heads. It can do a lot of different things. But our biggest drive, or I would say over the last couple of years, is figure out how to make the machines run overnight. It's very difficult to implement a second shift, even more difficult to implement a third shift. And our product volumes are high enough now that we need all that machine time. These machines need to run throughout the night. So automation is has been the buzzword for a couple of years. So I don't know if you've noticed throughout the podcast here, there's a gantry that runs above this machine, and it's picking out of this rotary table with all of our compressor wheel forgings in it. So these compressor wheels start out as a forging. And, forging, if people don't know, is just, it's a billet of a particular material. This is 2618 aluminum. Starts out as a forging, round cylindrical part, goes in through an oven and gets smacked to near net shape. But what you're doing is establishing that grain flow. We want that compressor wheel to have the grain in the axis that it's going to ultimately be shaped like. So they get forged, and then they run through this machine right now and get turned to rough diameter, get the hole put through them, and then they get ready to go over into the 5-axis machine that actually cuts the blades in the profile. That was one of those things, 2016, I think, IMTS at the machine tool show in Chicago. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to have one of those machines. And, the guy's like, yeah, sure you are, kid. And he was nice about it, but you could tell, I wasn't ready for it yet. Well, 2021, 22, it was time. And so we got them to do like a full runoff, which in, Detroit speak is you hand them a part number, prints, and you say, I need your machine to make this part. And they figure it out, and it's kind of put your money where your mouth is type thing. And you have a various sign-offs of the process. And it worked out really well. But we make 2 of those compressor wheels. It's a twin spindle machine. So not just one machine doing all the 5-axis turning or milling. You've got 2 spindles here making the compressor wheels. It makes 2 of them in 17 minutes. It's absurd.
Wow.
And we're not running it as fast as it could go. So there's excess capacity for us to pick up, another compressor wheel line. We're making various part numbers of our own, but if we wanted to start making drop-in wheels or explore making billet wheels, lots of machine time there. But yeah, that machine is wild to see it run. It's tough to actually see it run because there's so much going on in the machining enclosure, but we'll take you over there. And that machine, again, it's robot fed. It has a tray of 192 wheels that it'll run exactly like 16 hours. So when you come in the morning, it's like it's ran 2 shifts. So pretty slick.
Between, I had a question for you, Brayden. Between the forgings, the material, and then the machine, the machines making it, the thing that would jump out to me is the repeatability you can have. So whether I bought a turbo number 7,000 from you or somebody bought number 82,000, the variance between it would be minimal, if anything. So you have that quality no matter where you're at in the process of ordering, whether it's turbo you bought a year ago, you're going to buy next week. How does that affect the product line, the reliability, the focus that you guys have with these parts that people are upgrading their trucks with?
Well, quality control is not easy. we're an ISO 9001 facility. That's a certification for your quality standards, and everything we do, we are keeping track of dimensional output of the machine, statistical process control, SPC charts. Nobody likes to do them, but it's a necessary evil to understand that I've got an outlier, and then you can start to predict with that data. It's like, oh, I'm getting pretty long in the tooth on this one tool. So after 300 pieces, that tool wear makes these parts out of tolerance. So we need to develop a process that at 250 tools or 250 pieces, we're changing tools, or that the machine does it automatically and goes to the backup tool. Because I don't know, to dumb it down a little bit, these machines have got several hundred tools in them, and they don't have to be all different tools. They can be backup tools, and the machine is smart enough to say, I've ran this many parts, I'm swapping to my backup tool to make sure that I'm making good parts. There's cutter compensation. We can do in-process measurements with a probe to come up and check the actual part, and then it'll make an adjustment. And so if we're making a part that's a little big, it will adjust cutter compensation and get it back to where it's supposed to be. But the compressor wheel, I mean, something that's spinning 135, 145,000 RPMs, that center bore, that's the most important part of the whole operation. When we come in there, because we're putting this in there as a forging, and that forging's not exactly true, but it's big enough and oversized enough that it can be put in the jaws to create a good part. And then when it comes over and grabs it after the second op and turns the backside true, when we put that hole in there in the first op, it's got to be right. And sizing that hole, we're talking tenths, like a tenth, 1/10,000th of an inch, not 1,000th. And we shrink fit those wheels to the shafts. So it's got to be right, so we don't have to put too much heat in the wheel to get it to shrink the shaft. But the quality is difficult to control, but we have a whole, well, pretty much department now that is in charge of quality, making sure we don't have spills, how we handle it if we do have spills. Hopefully they never reach, out of house. But there's a lot of moving pieces. I mean, version control on files. So yeah, we made this part, and that's my favorite part. It takes 100 people to keep me organized. Okay. Fast and loose, like Manhattan Project is my style, and it's fun. And it's like, okay, now it's yours. You can have the rest. Well, version control between all those prototype levels, you've got to know how to cordon that off and say, this is not production. Make sure that never goes back in a machine, because it can happen. And we've done that before. We've loaded miss a rev on a part number, and we make an old part number and go out there in the scrap bin and you see XYZ part. But hopefully it makes it in our scrap bin and not in your box.
Yeah, well, that's the part that, like, as a truck enthusiast or truck owner, we don't know. Like, we see the turbo, we see the website, the logo, see guys at a show, see a truck running a part, and
yeah,
we like the performance of it, and that's our perception of it. But like right now, talking with you, seeing the machines, having you walk through it, this is all that goes into it, and I think it's so important for consumers, truck owners, to know what goes into that turbo, the wiring harness, or some of the other fix-it parts that we've talked about. And so I look forward to seeing some of the other things that you're going to walk me through and show me.
Yeah, process, just to keep, beating that horse a little bit. Process only goes so far. You can develop the process, but then you have to stick to it. Yeah. And that requires some training, and then, closing the loop and seeing why. And once we educate people or the operator on what the process is, you can pretty much dial something in that's foolproof. But as far as like balancing those compressor wheels, every one of them gets balanced by hand, runs through the balancing machine. I think we're almost 50,000 comp wheels in from the last 6 years. So 10, 12,000 turbos a year on that particular compressor wheel. So pretty cool, really high volumes, and to have such a low failure rate, low scrap rate, it's a testament to what our people can do.
Yeah, I can see how it's vastly, vastly more than just the machine. Yeah, I'm a novice, probably below a novice, but I think of you have the machine, well then you have the programming, well then you have to have the process in place, and you have to have the people that are involved in different parts of that process to
Yeah,
ensure it's all running smooth.
takes a special person too. Nobody, well, very few people get super excited about quality systems or like inspection equipment, coordinate measuring machines. We've got a coordinate measuring machine that's a little over a meter square, meter cubed actually, and you can go in there and reverse engineer anything or set a part up and load any of our parts in, and it will qualify those parts and show you, any deviations. But um, it's part of the process. And like I say, there's three guys that's all they're doing is creating quality prints and ensuring that everything that comes out of here is 100%.
I think where a lot of that probably comes from, maybe in your experience early on, right, is you sell a guy some parts or you work on his truck and there's a part failure or he's not happy and then
Oh
you get that call and he's
yeah,
pissed off. And I imagine
yeah,
probably some of those situations still are kind of in the back of your mind, even on this large scale, this vertical scale, saying, I want to avoid that for my sales guys and for Fleece.
you can't convey that like that feeling on the phone with a guy that's like, hey man, I just bought this. And prime example, like we started out like one product that probably nobody knows about, but it was turbo brake. It was an electronic product that was an electronic exhaust brake for the Duramax pickups '04, before they started adding it in the pickups. And the '07 Dodge and the '67 came out, they came with the exhaust brake. Well, we
Yeah.
were doing it as an aftermarket like add-on. It was way too complicated of a product to bite off as like your first product to like mass produce, market. Had to take out a loan to buy the circuit boards, like serious undertaking. This was when we were super small. And I just had assumed that, some of these connectors were the same. And I shipped one out for an LBZ and thinking the LLY version would work. And it was completely different, and nowadays the amount of effort that goes into like product development, like John Benshoof, and the rest of the guys are doing, we own 30 vehicles and we'll parallel test to get miles on them, but also like we have one of everything for carb testing and you name it. But I just, shipped him one. And the guy and I are great friends today, still, but he was hot. I was down at the Suncoast event and I'm like, if you're going to that event, I'll come down there. I'll check it out and inspect and get you going and all this stuff. Cause it was expensive. It was like $800 and he was expecting to have something that as advertised. So it's hard to convey that to our salespeople. It's hard to convey that to the people in kitting and packaging that like, if you miss this O-ring, you might be keeping somebody from taking their kid to school on Monday morning because they were doing this in their driveway on a Sunday afternoon.
Right.
And you have to think through that with that lens, all the time.
I see that as the foundation of a lot of what you're going through with me, with the technical side, but I see how it comes to fruition on, I would even say the emotional side as the customer.
Yeah. Yep.
That's why it is important, I think.
Yeah. There's trying to think if we can get you closer to the machine. If you want to see
Yeah.
the SX, or excuse me, the SW running. I don't speak German, but it's about that long of a name. And that's the twin spindle compressor wheel machine. But before we move to the next machine, you got any other questions?
No, I think you've laid the foundation really well. So I'm on kind of the path to see this, and like I said, I love to see the products. What's behind the products?
Yeah, we'll catch it. It's really cool watching that machine move and load them up with the robot, and we'll go from there.
Cool.
And we made it. Still got you?
Yep, I'm still here.
Awesome. So this is the SW. It's a German machine. Schwäbische Werkzeugmaschinen. Like I say, I don't speak German, but it's a highly specialized machine designed to make parts extremely fast. You'll see these in GM and Ford and all the tier ones that, you know, they'll be making a water pump housing, or a casting that is like a power steering pump, and they have 2 spindle and 4 spindle versions. So there's legitimately 2 or 4 of the identical part in a vise. So I don't know if you can see in here, but there's 2 parts loaded up right now. The robot has loaded it up. And we're mid-cycle. Hopefully we can catch it during a changeover. But like I said, this machine is making 2 compressor wheels in 17 minutes. So it's extremely fast, kind of underutilized. But again, vertical integration, we control our lead times better. We control the quality, and it cash flows making our parts. So that's all it has to do is cover its payment. And it's already paid for itself. We got it in 22. It's paid in 2 years. And there's lots of excess capacity. So, but there's a point in, and as we move forward, it's like, do I take the risk of taking that down to make something else when there's other machines that could make it, or where it could turn into you know, a quality spill every time we set up the first 5 parts, or, you know, because these machines have to warm up. They'll do a spindle warm up cycle for half an hour. This one's almost an hour, and they're used to running 24 hours a day. Well, we don't run it like that. So the first half of the day is getting this thing back normalized. And, you know, to speak to like the machining environment, this place is 70 and sunny year round. Doesn't matter if it's negative 20 outside. I mean, the gas bill here, pretty crazy. But that's part of having a machine shop that, you know, will have almost 50,000 square feet of machine shop. The rest of that is, you know, warehouse and offices and you name it. But that's part of it, and keeping the environment stable so that we make parts that are consistent and can maintain the quality. But yeah, like the new addition, it's pretty wild how much power we actually need to try to plan for the future. We've purchased, I don't know if people saw it, but I think I put it up on Instagram or Facebook. We got 7 machines in January, 2 of those Integrexes, a couple more Swiss machines, and then little 7-axis fancy Starag Boomatech. It's wild. They make Rolexes on them. That's like their primary customer. And so it's kind of neat. I was like, it didn't come with a Rolex though. But just since we've started this building project, we've purchased over 10 machines, which has changed. Okay, we thought we had enough power. There'll be over 10,000 amps of power in this building at 480. So it's just crazy how much stuff is behind the scenes of like, and we have our own excavating company. I'm out there playing in the dirt because I just can't give it up. Like, I'm out there making sure that this building project's going smoothly. And I guess it's because I just like the control and like knowing that that's exactly how I wanted it done. But lots and lots of wheels in motion.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. When you mentioned that machine and Rolex, I thought that the wait time's probably less on the machine than it is for some different Rolex models. So you could probably get it maybe a little bit quicker than a Daytona or something like that.
Ask them for some of the programs and we'll just make our own. Yeah.
It's, well, the thing that jumps out to me, and I can't say I have any direct experience with it in the automotive or diesel space, but in other industries I'm interested in, you'll hear of these products that they'll outsource the production, and then they have this huge issue with it because it wasn't built in-house, and it can destroy a reputation. I can think of a couple of companies where that's happened, and so I see from that standpoint as well why this is so crucial to have that high, electricity bill, the heat bill, how to have these run, how to set them up completely so you don't have that bad batch. Because I know fleece products, they're going to distribution, they're going to end users, they're going to dealers, they're probably going all over the world, they're going everywhere. You can't afford to have a bad batch that was outsourced or something like that out there.
Yeah, I mean, there's one thing to have somebody contract manufacture for you. It's just, if you do have that, anytime something goes out of house, they're called quality gates, and those quality gates are okay. In my inbound material quality, we don't make our bolts, we don't make our well, sometimes we make our bolts and our fasteners, but majority of this simple things, an M10 1.5, I'm going to buy it. Randomly, you'll find M10 fasteners that the machine, it's a screw machine, it's tossing them out super fast. You'll get a defective one. And if the person that's putting it in the kit doesn't see it, and it's on you because you were the last person to look at it. So, yeah, our process or our quality process doesn't just stop at our parts. It is all of our inbound that we all purchase materials, all the way back to, heat lots on injection pump cams. We buy our injection pump cams right across the street. There's a steel mill. You had to buy a minimum of like 3,000 or 4,000 pounds. It's like, okay, I guess so. And the biggest complaint I had there was they were 20-foot long bars of like 3-inch diameter bars. We're out there in the parking lot chopping them up with a bandsaw. Couldn't even get them through the doors. But we have a heat lot, and we know everything about that part when it was born, or the material when it was born. And that's the thing. If you just have somebody making your parts, I mean, we understand global sourcing. It's going to happen. I mean, you look at your clothes, your watch, your phone. The United States is getting there, but it's not going to happen overnight. But from our perspective, making as much of this that we can make as humanly possible here controls our destiny, controls our margins, controls our quality.
Diesel fans, I wanted to chat with you about diesel fuel, which we've talked about a lot on the podcast because it ties together Cummins, Duramax, Power Stroke trucks, whether they're new, old, anywhere in between. The quality of diesel fuel is an issue, and it's because of a lack of lubricity and some other inherent qualities with it. Our friends over at Hot Shot Secrets, you've heard them on the podcast before, and they really focused in on being able to boost performance and address some of the issues that can happen, like fuel system damage, wear, and the expensive repairs that go along with it. So Hot Shot Secret EDT is an all-in-one product. It adds 4 times lubricity versus the nearest competitor, boosts cetane, cleans injectors, and it's something that's really easy to use. So if you're looking to maintain your truck, avoid those costly repairs, go to hotshotsecret.com and use DieselPod15. It gets you 15% off your order. It's a great way to save some money, get a quality product, and be able to avoid some of these costly repairs and be proactive with your maintenance. We really appreciate Hot Shot Secret offering this discount code just for Diesel Podcast listeners. So if you're in the market, head on over to their website and use code DieselPod15 for 15% off your order. This is a general question. It's not about a product, but it fits together with this. I don't want to ask which is harder because I think they're both probably equally as hard, but there's two parts, like these machines, programming them, learning them in and out. Like you need to, and I'm sure want to, know everything you can about them. But then also having this kind of bird's eye view of this 250,000 square foot facility, all these parts, like almost being, I guess, manager or like an operations manager, production manager. You have like these two different sides, like the technical data side, but then also I need to manage this huge assembly line. Which do you enjoy one more than the other? Do you enjoy both equally? Is one challenging? Like, how did you? This seems like so much to take on.
I won't say that I'm a bad manager. It's just you got to identify the biggest part about growing a business, I think, and I've seen it in other places, and I'm like, oh, good, that's. Identify your weaknesses, figure out what you're not good at. And I said it earlier, I'm not super organized. I'm that seat of the pants, Manhattan Project, let's go, go, go. And then the rest of the team will get it across the finish line. I guess being an owner, it's kind of nice that I can just say, yeah, that's what I want to do. But, Jeff Merriman, operations manager, he's been with us over 10 years. He's doing an amazing job. He's the COO. He's running the place day to day. he's running operations. It's collaborative. We have a leadership team of, 5 of us that are making decisions based on, educated decisions based on all our inputs at the time. So it's not just me doing, overseeing an operation or Chase. It's all of us. Everybody's kind of compartmentalized. As you get bigger, you wear less hats and you do get compartmentalized. And then you add layers. And that's where we're at right now is, we're adding layers in between. Jeff Merriman needs an actual machine shop. Oh, shameless plug. There's a pretty cool position open right now, machine shop manager to run all this. So jobs at fleeceperformance.com. They're going to hate me for that. Or it could be a blessing.
You got to get the word out.
I'm looking for a hot shot. But that's the thing. You got to add layers because there are bigger, like global decisions that we're working on that you can't get mired down in, actual production support. So that's kind of what we're adding. But we're continuously, we just added 2 programmers today. That they'll help tremendously because as we grow, you get those glass ceilings and the growing pains of like, man, I just want to go make a part like we used to. Man, I would grab a machinist and I'd grab a programmer, and by lunchtime we're holding a part. And the bigger you get, the further away from that you get. So you have to be able to stay agile, and that's where there's over 100 people now, and I never in my mind could have imagined that pole barn performance could turn into 100 people within less than 20 years.
Right. How do you keep how does Fleece Performance keep its finger on the pulse of the enthusiast when you have these huge concepts and production lines and everything else that are out there? How do you keep those kind of, like you said, the Manhattan Project, kind of the Wild West, what's the enthusiast looking for? How do you integrate that into this technical side?
We get a lot of dealer feedback. I mean, guys will tell us, man, if you would make this, and, I'm having problems with this. And like I said, we own one of every vehicle. The 2025 Ram is about to show up, and I'm sure there'll be things on that. There's parts that, we're late to the game on sometimes that other people that are more agile may beat us to the market, but we move pretty quickly and we release a lot of product. So it's, when we do come out with it, it's going to be right. There's going to be availability. There's going to be, instructions. There's going to be parts in distribution, but it's going to get loud. It's finishing that operation. You can see it's getting ready to grab a couple wheels right now.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's we don't run it at 100% because it's almost scary how fast it moves in that tiny little enclosure. You jump, but right now it's blowing off those parts so that when it puts them in the nest, it's not contaminating the nest with chips. Those are those little simple things in the process that you're like, this thing's got to run without somebody for 16 hours. How can we mitigate the what ifs?
Yeah.
And it'll grab a hold of them here in a second. Like I said, there's a tray right next to it that has the turned forgings, and that it'll set right down in there. So the swing clamp will move out of the way. It'll go in there and grab the wheels. Blowing off the bottom again, sets it in the nest.
It's so impressive to see this.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah, it's crazy.
And so think about that. If we didn't put the robot integration onto the machine, someone would have had to sit there and load 2 parts every 17 minutes. And it really wouldn't have been helpful because then the machine would have had to run all day long, 8 hours a day, tended. It's operator fatigue. And I try to, we try to make it easier on our employees. A lot of people look at automation and robotics like, oh, it's going to take my job. It's going to make your job easier and take away the mundane tasks so that we can better resource you, teach you to be a programmer, to program the machines, and then let the robots do the menial tasks that it's not fun to do. That's the stuff that burns you out as an employee. We want everybody to enjoy their job and not be like, well, going to sit here and tighten vices all day long. I mean, we just purchased a couple of machines, Mazak machines that are pallet pool machines, Pallitex, and they will run just continuously overnight. And we're talking not small parts. We're going to run, we do a contract job where we run a aftermarket LS engine block, an LT engine block. It's going to run engine blocks automated all night because the volumes are high enough that we can't get it all done in one shift. So we're talking, we'll be spitting out 10 to 12 LS LT blocks a day. So we do a Honda head, it's pretty neat, and it'll go in the same machine. A B18 Honda, a couple of buddies of mine are, I'd say, our equivalent in the 4-cylinder world, the import world, 4-piston. We're making a cylinder head. We're doing the machining on that head for them, and we're making plays so that they can scale like we think that they're going to.
So this is even bigger than diesel, and that's what I get really excited thinking about that as well. It's just this isn't just limited to a Cummins Power Stroke Duramax process. If there were other needs for it, you talked about, you know, if we need a bolt, I can make a bolt, and these other components to it. It's a really comprehensive setup.
Yeah, we do contract manufacturing for some other people in the diesel industry. Some people private label some of our stuff, and you know, there's complementary parts where we don't want to make it. We've got guys that make some stuff and put their name on it for us, but we trust them as a, you know, quality partner, and we still do our inbound quality checks on, you know, some welded and fabricated things that we don't like to do in here, and not equipped to do it. But yeah, there's a lot of opportunity, you know, with all the EPA crackdown that was happening. And you know, we have got tons and tons of CARB EOs, and everything that we do gets, you know, looked at through the CARB EO approval process. We have a compliance engineer on staff. He is doing a great job getting everything through there quickly. And but with EPA, it was like, well, okay, if diesel starts to dwindle, where do we go? What's next? Well, with 50 CNC machines, spindles, from 3 to 10 axis, we can make anything. And you know, we're your atypical machine shop. Like, I've got some friends that are just straight machinists or machine shop owners, and they're like, gosh, how do you have so many CNC machines and so many types? And man, I couldn't dream of having an Integrex. And it's like, well, we got 2 of them. And it's because we're going direct to retail or direct to distribution with our own product. And once we get those machines paid for with our own product, if there's open spindle time, sure, let's figure out what to make. And we're doing some really cool stuff for some big people, OE level, skunk works type stuff, and some production stuff. So it's cool.
Is that where that ISO certification factors into it? I imagine
well, it's like
does.
a Field of Dreams thing. You get that, and then that's one notch in the belt. And then, I mean, you have to have it to work with companies, big OEs. But then, you know, aerospace is a whole different ball of wax. But yeah, once you have that, it opens up a lot of opportunities. We did our cage code for defense work and all that a couple of years ago as well. Haven't dove into it really hard because we really don't have the excess capacity yet. But with the amount of machines we're bringing on board, we hope to alleviate our prototyping machines or our lower volume machines, push all of our production stuff into automated machining, and free up some more machine time for other things.
At this point, having seen these 2 machines and the process you've talked me through, I think of one of the major changes I remember from 15 or so years ago getting into diesel trucks to now is how, I don't want to say picky, but maybe that's the right word, how picky we are as truck owners as to what we put on our truck. We've gotten used to the OEM quality, the OEM fit and finish, the OEM function, which is vastly different in 2025 versus like a 3rd gen Ram or an LB7 or some of that older stuff, to where when we get an aftermarket part, we expect all the same things we did from Ford, GM, or Ram on it as well. And everything you've walked me through is pointing to that same direction of this aftermarket part is on par or probably exceeds. Well, I know it exceeds it in different ways.
That's what we try to do, is exceed OEM quality and fix a part, you know, beat it in a couple different ways. The trifecta of, one, availability, because you go to the dealership right now and try to get parts and it's like, oh, it's on a back order. When's it going to be back in stock? It's an indefinite back order. I don't know. And so availability, price, and quality. And there's a lot of the parts we're making are problem solver parts. Underhood Ford fuel filter, the underbed one. Just one, it's a cheaper fuel filter change. And two, it solves the problem of not melting your Ford truck to the ground. But then transmission lines, the GMs, the Dodges, the GM especially, that's not our core business, but the fitting that they chose to use on the side of the transmission, that it's super quick on the assembly line, but they leak and leave a trans fluid spot on your driveway. And we make a whole new transline kit that solves that problem. It's AN fittings. Some people were using kind of hydraulic, not quite as sexy fittings, and they're like, well, they've got to have a ton of money in AN fittings. We just make them all. We make our own AN fittings. Some of the highest volume parts we sell in the race catalogs, like the Summit and Jegs, are our own our AN fittings. So kind of funny.
Yeah. That's what I want when I buy a part. I want something better than what my truck came with, and these definitely do it.
Yeah, and like the turbochargers, we've had to look at all that through the lens of it's better quality. We balance to a 10 times higher specification than what Holsit recommends for like the Holsit Cheetah. But the truck still operates like factory if you have a factory truck and you can grow into it. If you have tuning and you got injectors and whatever on that truck, it'll let you grow, but it also has been through carb testing to where it's 100% compliant. It still has good drivability and good driving manners. L5P Cheetah, I've been driving one for over a year. We've all driving it. We're all nitpicking what we like, what we don't like. There's been 4 or 5 revisions of it. That's one that we may not be first to market, but when we go to market with it very soon, it will be well vetted and available.
Yeah, that's what I want when I order a part. I just want to get it, want it to work, want the repeatability, and that. Yeah, I don't necessarily care if I don't want to buy first. I don't like buying first anything, really. I like to wait a little bit and then make my choices.
People, I'm the same. It's like, let's get this some time to marinate. And
Very cool. Well, I know you got a huge building there. I'm sure if you walked us through every machine, it'd probably be like a Joe Rogan-esque 4.5 hour kind of podcast thing. But were there any other things you wanted to? Yeah. Were there any things you wanted to show us?
I could walk through and show you some of the Swisses. I could, it's so cool. Like, I was telling you, we had to kind of change our thought process as we were going through this building, because we've grown so much just during the building planning that we've dedicated a portion of the warehouse to Swiss Alley. We've got 7 Swiss machines, 2 more show up in a couple of weeks. That's a total of 9. A Swiss machine is a lathe with, super high speed, and it can make small parts really fast. We've got room for 20 of them in there, and you walk out there and they're pouring a 16-foot tall concrete wall. There's going to be a second floor with a concrete slab on that second floor that was not even planned in the original building, but we needed that extra space for these Swiss machines, and all of it's driven by our additional volumes and customer demand.
Is that where you guys are making like the Ford 6.7 parts and maybe some of the fittings and some of
the 6.7 fittings are made in that little Rolex machine?
Okay.
So yeah, it's I probably can't even say their name without I'm probably gonna get a letter. But no, that Starag Boomatech 7-axis twin spindle mill turn, it's the one that's spitting out the Ford fittings. We were making them on the Swisses, but they don't mill quite as quickly. That thing has a 30,000 RPM spindle, which is like, Dremel fast, but it's 25 horsepower. This one's 30 horsepower and 40,000 RPMs. And people are like, don't you mean 4,000? It's like, no, it's 40,000 RPMs. It's not even, this one doesn't even have ball screws that actually move the axes. It's a linear machine. So like a magnetic accelerated roller coaster, same technology. It moves the axes with electromagnetism. So it's got a little sticker that says if you have a pacemaker or a hip implant, stay away. I have neither, so I'm good. But knock on wood.
This is so cool. I love seeing. I didn't know all this. I knew Fleece Performance was huge. I knew you guys made a ton of great products. You've been around for a long time. The parts were proven, whether it's at the racetrack or whether it's towing, daily driving. But to see this side of it adds a whole bunch of depth to Fleece Performance. When I think of these parts that, like I see them post on Facebook or Instagram, you guys have a new release, or Jeff or John are talking to me about them, or a listener says, "Hey Patrick, what do you think about this lift pump from Fleece?" And I know the conversation around it, but I don't see behind the scenes. That's what's so cool about this podcast.
Well, and like you've got a foot in the past where you saw, where we started.
Yeah.
You started off the conversation with, diesel power challenge. I mean, we were swapping a transmission. There's a picture of me.
You guys were on the ground. I remember.
Yes. Yeah. And, humble beginnings. And there's a lot of people that they know the brand because we've done a good job of marketing the brand, but they don't know who we are. It's like a couple of farm kids that started this and surrounded ourselves with good people and kept reinvesting. And that's what's got us where we're at. But I invite anybody that wants to come see it. During UCC time, it's like an open door. There's tons of people in and out of here. We take customers through here all the time. I'll always take time to give somebody a tour. And yeah, like you said, it's like a Rogan podcast. I'll be 2 hours through a tour, and you can't get me to shut up. But maybe I'll run around on a scooter and just do the selfie stick and weave through all the machines. And usually Chase is making noise on the engine dyno. He had to run home earlier today, but just got done with one of our billet motors on the engine dyno. And so neat stuff. There's always something cool happening here.
Definitely. There is. I wanted to ask you one last question, a general question. What would you tell, a younger person that they're you right now, but when, the early 2000s, they're passionate about automotive. They have watched or listened to this podcast. They've heard about these machines, and it seems so unattainable when you're just starting out. It seems so far ahead, like you'd never catch up. What's a couple pieces of advice you'd give somebody to get to that level?
I can tell a story and then probably translate that into advice. But like early on when we started, we couldn't afford a CNC machine. So I was making cheetahs on a 1940s, 50s South Bend manual lathe. I mean, had a leather belt, like super simple. I self-taught myself how to run it, how to not get wrapped up in it with my hands. Had a gentleman that I was working for had a mill and a lathe in his welding shop, and he allowed me to mess around and use it whenever I wanted. But so the grind, just if you have that passion, pour fertilizer on it, do what you got to do. And not everybody's in that position, I know, but I was fortunate enough. It was the right time. My wife allowed me to, she wasn't my wife at the time, but as we were younger, I spent a lot of time developing this business, but like I say, that it took me an hour to make a cheetah. By the time I got good at it, it took me a whole day to make a first one. Well, I then saw that, okay, there's a CNC machine that could do this, and went into the bank, and I'm 24, 25 years old, and I wanted to go buy a $40,000 lathe. And, my banker's like, you want to buy a what? This is a small town farmer's bank. If it was a tractor, he would have let me buy a combine. But when I wanted to buy a CNC lathe, he's like, I don't know, boys, it seems risky, and I'm like, well, you know where it's at. You can come repo it. Just come on. And so that first investment, $40,000 lathe, watching that comp cover be made in what took, we programmed it ourselves and started machining it, self-taught ourselves. Really, they gave us kicked us to the wolves, kind of showed us how to run it, and then we learned it. It made a comp cover profile in 3 minutes.
Wow.
So the advice, you got to grind and reinvest. And, the first turbos, maybe I sold 10 or 20 cheetahs and through the forums and all this stuff. And I'd sell, a couple a month. I took that money though, and I reinvested it. I could have bought, parts for my truck, could have bought a street bike, could have bought a Harley, new four-wheeler, but we didn't. My brother and I had our eye on the prize, and it was, we're going to put money in this. We're going to pour fertilizer on it and see where it goes. And that's still the motto today. I mean, besides the buildings, we're pretty much debt free, and because we reinvest so heavy, and that's where you want to be. And I think that's where our employees want us to be, a stable company that has, their future in mind as well. But advice starting out, reinvest. It's hard to not get a little taste of money. And I've seen it 100 times. I've seen it in our industry. Guy gets a new bass boat, guy gets this, that, and then guy doesn't have a business anymore. So
yeah, there's a lot of temptation, out there to buy this
yep.
truck,
and,
whatever it might be.
And you got to do it right. You're going to make mistakes. Like I said, I shipped that guy a product that I thought would work, and but it's how you handle it. Some people, it's all in how you handle it. You can't tell a guy to go kick rocks. If you're wrong, you're wrong. Even, customer's always right most of the time, but you can educate someone through, you want the customers and trust in you to that you're giving them a quality product. And if you fail, it's how you handle it. And I think our whole staff has done a great job to convey our wishes on, how we feel as a company.
That's why I was really excited to chat with you today about this side of Fleece Performance, because this is the future, in my opinion. And not just from the perspective of where things are made, but just as an individual consumer or an individual shop owner or entrepreneur or someone like that. This is the example from everything, from the focus on not getting that angry customer calling back to jumping into this, and you guys learning kind of on the fly, to the production, to the vertical integration, to the precision, to the quality. This is where the diesel industry needs to go, and the automotive industry in general needs to go in this direction to thrive. And people are holding on to their vehicles longer now, and there's that drive for parts that are going to be coming up on the 4th gens and the early 5th gen Rams and some of the other trucks out there. So it's this constant cycle, and it's really cool to see how you guys have built it. And I mean, I appreciate getting this kind of behind the scenes glimpse and being able to share it with our listeners, people who find us on YouTube. It's so cool to see this side of Fleece Performance.
Yeah, it's been fun being on the show. I wish I could just literally grab you and walk you through every area. There's so much to see. I mean, we do our own electronics. Circuit boards, testing. You wouldn't believe how much we have. Thermal chambers that are testing things down to -50 Celsius, humidity testing. Like it's pretty legit. It's kind of one of those things where you got to pinch yourself, like, wow, is this real? Like, look at the stuff that we can do. But I think the diesel industry as a whole, there's a ton of innovators in this business. There's automotive in general has a lot of, hardworking people, but diesel specifically, we just figure it out, and it's pretty cool to be a part of.
Well, maybe next time we could do another one of these and you show me the electronic side. I would love to see that, because electronics to me are like pure magic that just, it works. The switch goes on, the button comes on, and I would love to learn more and see more behind the scenes, with that, especially things I've heard from different podcasts, different people. Electronic stuff on some trucks might be an issue in the future, and I'm sure you guys will have fixes for them and options for people. So I really,
alert.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate your time today, Brayden. It was so cool to chat with you. I appreciate you, taking us behind the scenes with these machines and answering, some questions that I had and showing us more Fleece Performance.
Thanks for having me, Patrick. It's been a good time.
Don't forget, Diesel fans, make sure and head on over to Kershaw.kaiusa.com. Use code TDP2540. It'll get you 40% off MSRP. It's a great way to save some money and get some cool gear if you're in the market for a new EDC knife, something for hunting, fishing, around the job site, around the house. They've got you covered with a bunch of different choices for blade steel, blade shape, different opening mechanisms, handle designs, and their whole lineup's designed to meet any budget that you might have. So if you're in the market, make sure and head on over to Kershaw.kaiusa.com and use code TDP2540 for 40% off MSRP. Also want to give a shout out to some of our Patreon supporters: Tyler Lowe in the 23 Diesel, Cutter Up Rob, Robert, all of other Patreon supporters, all of you who subscribe on YouTube and podcast apps. Follow us on social media. We appreciate all your support here in year 9 of the Diesel Podcast and look forward to bringing you more of the content that you want to hear in 2025. Till next time, keep the shiny side up.